It's because he was basically issued with an arrest warrant for the crime he committed against humanity by the Israel government against Palestinian and rest of the people in the neighborhood of Israel. By the International Criminal Court, it puts him alongside Vladimir Putin of Russia, Umar al-Bashir of Sudan, and Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. Despite of all his woes, of which he have threatened to topple him, Netanyahu is a widely politically survived. Re-elected for a record fifth time in November 2022, he leads as head of the Likud party, the most right-wing coalition in Israel's history. His return to power followed a relatively brief spell in opposition after 12 straight years as prime minister. His dramatic comeback sealing a belief among his supporters that King Bibi is politically invincible. After Golda Meir, Ariel Sharon, he considered himself as the most remembered person in Israel's history. But on 7 October 2023, Israel suffered the most catastrophic attack in its history under Netanyahu's watch. When hundreds of Hamas gunmen burst through the border from Gaza, they killed about 1,200 people and took 251 others back to Gaza as hostages. Netanyahu later on launched a war to destroy Hamas in response, which he failed, and he killed innocents a lot. One which is still being fought over a year later. At least 44,000 people have been killed by Israeli attacks in Gaza. Majority of them, they are civilians and infants. According to the territory Hamas-run health ministry, bringing condemnation on Israel from the international community. Netanyahu has also faced and resisted huge pressure, democratically elected prime minister at home, domestically, to agree to a ceasefire to bring about the release of about 100 hostages still being held by Hamas. Israel and Hamas have blamed each other for the failure to reach a deal. Meanwhile, Israel has also faced over a year of attacks by the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah in Lebanon, which says it is acting in solidarity with the Palestinians. At least 60,000 people have been displaced from their homes in northern Israel because of the attacks. The 7 October action is considered as a defensive measure to support Israel's independence as well as freedom, calling on him to accept responsibility for the worst intelligence failure in Israel's history. Netanyahu has so far deflected personal blame. But some major successes for Israel, including the killings of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar and Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah, and a popular ground offensive against Hezbollah, have seen Netanyahu's ratings rebound. Having a strategist background, Benjamin Netanyahu was born in Tel Aviv in 1949, and in 1963 his family moved to the United States when his father, Ben Zion, a prominent historian and Zionist activist, was offered an academic post. At the age of 18, he returned to Israel, where he spent 5 distinguished years in the army, serving as a captain in an elite commando unit. In 1976, Netanyahu's brother Jonathan was killed, leading a raid to rescue hostages from a hijacked airliner in Entebbe. His death had a profound impact on the Netanyahu family, and in the meanwhile, he was busy to run an academic as well as a strategist position both at Israel and in the United States. Later on in 1998, he had joined politics, winning a seat for Likud in the Knesset parliament and becoming deputy foreign minister. He later became party chairman and in 1996, Israel's first directly elected prime minister, after an early election following the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. Despite having previously criticized the 1993 Oslo peace accords between Israel and the Palestinians, Netanyahu signed a deal handing over 80% of Hebron to Palestinian Authority control and agreed to further withdrawals from the occupied West Bank, to much from the right. Later on, he lost office in 1999 after he called elections 17 months early, defeated by Labour leader Ehud Barak, Netanyahu's former commander. Netanyahu stepped down as Likud leader and was succeeded by Ariel Sharon after Sharon was elected prime minister in 2001. Netanyahu returned to government first as foreign minister and then as finance minister. In 2005, he resigned in protest at the Israeli withdrawal from the occupied Gaza Strip. His change came again in 2005 when Sharon, just before a massive stroke that left him in a coma, split from Likud and set up a new centrist party, Hatima. Netanyahu won the Likud leadership again and was elected prime minister for the second time in March 2009. Later on, he agreed to an unprecedented 10-month freeze on settlement construction in the West Bank, enabling peace talks with Palestinians, but negotiations collapsed in the late 2010. Having these ties, he was a most, we can say, a very prominent as well as famous leader around the world, though controversial, because Palestinian attacks and Israeli military action repeatedly brought Israel into confrontation in and around the Gaza Strip before and after Netanyahu returned to office in 2009. The fourth such conflict in just 12 years erupted in May 2021, putting a temporary halt to efforts by parties opposed to Netanyahu to oust him following a series of inconclusive elections. Although during the conflicts, Israel had the support of the United States, its closest ally, the relations between Netanyahu and President Barack Obama were difficult. They reached a low point when Netanyahu addressed Congress in March 2015, warning against a bad deal arising out of U.S. negotiations with Iran over its nuclear program. The Obama administration condemned the visit as interfering and damaging. Recent ties with the United States as well as with Trump administration had a long history since 1980s. The advent of Donald Trump presidency in 2017 led to a closer alignment between the United States and Israeli government policies, and within a year, Trump announced his recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The move sparked fury across the Arab world, which supports the Palestinians' claim to the eastern half of Jerusalem, occupied by Israel since 1967 Middle East war, but it handed Netanyahu a major political and diplomatic coup. In January 2020, Netanyahu had Trump's blueprint for peace between Israel and the Palestinians as the opportunity of the century, though it was spurned by Palestinians as one-sided and left on the table. Netanyahu also saw eye to eye with Trump on Iran, welcoming the president's withdrawal in 2018 from the Iran nuclear deal and reinstatement of economic sanctions. Trump, however, made stinging remarks about the Israeli leader, accusing him of disloyalty after he congratulated Joe Biden on winning the presidency in 2020. Despite of his progress in the international arena, according to the BBC report, after 2016, Netanyahu was dodged by a corruption investigation which culminated in him being charged with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in connection with 3 separate cases in November 2019. Netanyahu is alleged to have accepted gifts from wealthy businessmen and dispensed favors to try to get more positive press coverage. He denies wrongdoing and says he is the victim of a politically motivated witch hunt engineered by his opponents. He went on trial in May 2020, becoming the first serving prime minister to do so. Here we have a little bit information about the cases where he was charged for fraud and breach of trust. As per the reports of BBC, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been indicted on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. As per the reports of the experts, they are telling us that prolonging the war on Gaza as Palestine, Netanyahu is seeking to delay all the charges and cases which can bar him from politics.